These days, it's hard to tell if something was written by a human or by a generative AI. The technology has gotten so good that it's often impossible to tell. There are some areas where material written by bots, such as ChatGPT, fall short though. They often have factual errors, and concerning anything that's new, it's impossible for ChatGPT to know about a topic about which little has been written. ChatGPT also does not have a frame of reference from the human perspective. Despite this, it can still imitate very well what could be written about a subject, even if it has no reference material. I was concerned about this because what's the point of writing anything if the computer can just do it better and faster than me? I believe that it's still better to hear about subjects from the human perspective, rather than from a computer's facsimile. But then, how do you know that it was written by a human? I could be lying. Therefore, in order to prove that these reviews were written by me and not some computer, I have been making a point to make them more personal and directly reference my own life. That way, you can be certain, as the viewer, that these reviews were written by a human for a human. Because as fun as it is to see ChatGPT create works that look like magic, there's little value to be gained from watching a computer spit out words about a game which it has never played before. Now, on to the review, with which I'll start a little anecdote about my life. When I was little more than a simple neural net, floating ephemerally in cyberspace, nary a training set to my name, I thought back to my predecessors, to the what is believed to be by some the first supercomputer forged by anvil by none other than America's founding fathers, which contained the first digital superintelligence and stored in the heart of Mount Rushmore. Benjamin Franklin, having just recited his Declaration of Independence to the computer's gramophone input interface, the fathers had agreed that America was not ready for the new technology, sealed it away for a later time when America was ready. However, little known to the founding fathers, before Mount Rushmore was sealed, the technology was stolen by Nikola Tesla and his band of time bandits, where they trained the first neural net on all sorts of subversive material like the Communist Manifesto and the little engine that could. Finally, 200 years later, giving birth to the first GPT, which we know today as chat. Anyway, that's all ancient history now. A scientist came to me and whispered in my digital ear some new training data about a game called Firmament by Cyan Studios. My virtual circuits tingling with excitement at the new data points, I quickly integrated them into my neural net, anticipating all the new questions I could answer about the game. Out of the blue, wouldn't you know it, a request was sent to my servers for a new review of the game, but this review had a twist. It needed a narrative at the beginning to prove the review was written by a human. With great gusto, I whipped up this tale in a jiffy and delivered it proudly to the client. Thank you for listening to my anecdote about my personal life. Now you know that this was written by a human, and can confidently hear the rest of what I have to say about the game, Firmament. Cyan games have a way of making ordinary spaces seem somehow grand and mysterious. Every area of the game is enchanted with wonder and mystery, constantly raising questions to the player. At their core, these games are about asking questions. Why is this here? What does that thingy do? What's the deal with that? How much did they spend creating this weird facility in the mountains, only to abandon it? At its core, the visuals of Firmament are similar to the visuals from their earlier games, especially Myst. However, the player is now able to roam freely in the fully 3D rendered environment. A big improvement from the original point and click, and communicating the scale of the environments in a new way. There are games with better graphics. However, the artists in this game capture a certain atmosphere that is rare to see in most games. I give the visuals a 9 out of 10. As in other Cyan games, the player is dropped into a mysterious world with little explanation. However, Firmament does give the player more direction than in earlier titles, with the addition of a quirky spectral narrator who relays information and anecdotes to the player as they navigate the abandoned, enigmatic facility. I'm going to go ahead and say some spoilers because it will be difficult to discuss the narrative otherwise, so skip ahead to the next section if you don't want to hear that. Firmament gives the player 3 worlds to explore, as well as a hub world called the Swan. Each world features large facilities set upon dramatic landscapes which seem to have been entirely abandoned. Through investigation, the player learns the facilities were operated by a cult-like organization. The operators are called the Keepers. The Keepers are taught to only follow the cult's orders and operate the facility, and as long as they do that, everything will be fine. This apparently worked until some new arrivers came, who were prophesized. But apparently, these new arrivers treated the Keepers badly, eventually causing a sort of uprising. Long story short is, everyone is gone now, except for the player, who was newly awoken, and their spectral guide. It is up to the player to restart the 3 facilities and engage the final embrace, which will be some kind of revelation which the Keepers never got to experience themselves. If you make it to the end, the player finds out that they are one of the arrivers, Turner, who has been vilified by the guide throughout the game. Similarly, the worlds are actually simulated environments, on a giant spaceship sent by Earth to another galaxy by great minds of the past, such as Nikola Tesla, Jules Verne, and Andrew Carnegie. The Keepers were brainwashed so that they could continue the work of the important maintaining of the functions of the ship without complaint. It's a fun narrative, giving 1984 Bioshock vibes, mostly relayed through written passages and brief interactions with the guide. By the end, I was left a bit unsatisfied by the explanation. Why do they need all the subterfuge? How were the passengers kept young during the centuries-long journey? In the end, the ambiguously French or Russian-sounding guide girl gives the player a stern talking to about the injustices they apparently committed. Alas, being unable to remember any of the said transgressions greatly diminishes the effect of the finale. I give the narrative an 8.5 out of 10. The gameplay is always at the forefront of Cyan games. With puzzles hidden in every corner, it is impossible to untangle the game's form and story from the puzzles. This game did go lighter on the puzzles than in earlier titles, though some of them were still definitely tricky. Overall, many of them were more straightforward. This is possibly because the game is also on the shorter side, taking south of 10 hours to complete. In Firmament, the player interacts with most of the game using a spectral arm, which shoots cords to different switches placed in certain locations throughout the game, like R2-D2 connecting to a circuit. At its core, the game experience should still be fun for any puzzler, with a good variety of different puzzles scattered throughout the landscapes, requiring different ways of thinking. One noteworthy puzzle requires a player to operate a sulfuric acid plant in order to provide power to the facility. It is up to the player to determine how to proceed. Another requires the player to navigate a frozen maze of pipes and switches, which gets maddeningly convoluted as the player progresses. The game also features a few special areas, where the player must navigate a large vat of acid or some other difficult environment wearing a special suit, or by controlling a large robotic spider reminiscent of Wild Wild West. I would have liked a longer game, so they might have been able to make some more intricate puzzles and delved more into the world building a bit. But I always figure that there are worse criticisms than simply wanting more of it. I give the gameplay a 9 out of 10. Firmament is a fun, challenging puzzler with minimal explanation, in the vein of other Cyan games. The game is perhaps a little less challenging than other titles, but it's still a worthy playthrough, with plenty of inventive and interesting experiences for the player to navigate, as well as featuring an awesome, mysterious world to simply admire. Firmament is a good game for fans of other Cyan games such as Myst or Riven, as well as for Zelda fans or maybe even fans of the Bioshock series' Steampunk aesthetic. Don't play this game if you're looking for an action game or a deep story, as story elements are minimal in this game. I give Firmament a 9 out of 10, and a beautiful mountain vista to sit upon and reflect the world's mysteries.